Hello friends, my name is Professor Bhavik Joshi from the Civil Engineering Department of Lakshmi Institute of Technology. Now, in the previous lectures, we have been studying about the equipments that are used in advanced construction technology. Now, today we are going to see about the foundations that are prepared for any structure before constructing the substructure and the superstructure. So, let us straight dive into the foundations for civil engineering structures. Now, today we are going to study about which foundations are constructed for which structures and what are the types of foundations that we are going to use for different types of civil engineering structures. Now, let us see first of all the purpose of foundation. Why do we need to prepare a foundation for any structure? Now, friends, to distribute the load of the substructure or the superstructure, that is the upper part of a building, we need to construct a foundation beneath the soil, so that it can bear the load of the substructure and superstructure and distribute it into the ground evenly and equally. Okay. So, let us understand in deep what are the purposes of foundation first of all. Whether constructing a single family home, whether you are constructing your own house suppose, or a skyscraper, that is a tall buildings if you are constructing, or a superstructure, suppose you are constructing a bridge superstructure. Okay. Choosing the proper foundation is very essential. That is, first of all, the load calculation will be done and proper design of the structure will be prepared, based on which you will select a proper foundation for that structure beneath the soil, that is into the sub layers of the soil. Now, the foundation of any building serves two main purposes. Now, what are the purposes for any foundation of a building? First is to distribute the weight from load bearing walls to the soil or bedrock beneath. Okay. Suppose the structure is load bearing, okay, that is made up of walls and there are no beams and columns. Okay. Then even in that you will need a foundation to transfer the load of the load bearing walls into the ground, that is into the soil equally and evenly throughout the soil or the ground on which you are constructing it. Okay. And keep groundwater or soil moisture out. Second is to keep the groundwater or the soil moisture that are found beneath the earth, that is below the top surface of the earth, we also need to keep it away. Okay. So, those are the two main purposes of a foundation. Okay. Whether it is a deep or a shallow foundation, okay, we need to construct a proper foundation for it. Now, we will also see in detail what are the foundations that are required for any structures. Now, first of all, before seeing that, let us see what are the factors affecting selection of foundation. How do we select a foundation first of all? Now, based on the topography, what is the level of the soil at which we are going to construct our structure? Then geology, what is the geology of the soil on which our structure is going to be constructed? And pedology, we also need to study that pedology, the study of soil. What are the characteristics of soil on which we are going to construct our structure? On the construction side, in addition to the size of your building, okay, we also need to see what is the size of our building and how many stories of building we are going to construct, and what are the loads that are going to be imposed on the soil from that building. Okay. And other factors like the type of construction, what is the type of construction, whether it is a residential construction or a public building or a bridge or a railway project. Okay. And the type of foundation that is appropriate for your building. Now, as I told you, first of all, we will see what is the structure that is going to be constructed, and the load calculation will be done for it, the plans will be prepared for it, and the total design will be kept on a paper, and then based on the load calculation, we will select the foundation that is necessary to transmit that load that is going to be imposed from the substructure and superstructure into the ground. So, these are the factors affecting selection of foundation. Now, let us dive into the types of foundations. What are the types of foundations? Given the land beneath our feet can be comprised of many different types of soil. Now, there can be many different types of soil at different regions, that is in different states we find different types of soil. Okay. Somewhere there is a red soil, somewhere there is a black cotton soil, okay. Somewhere there is a hard soil or a softer soil. Okay. Somewhere there is stones, sediments, and more geotechnical engineers must be cognizant of how these variables within the earth impact construction and structural integrity. Now, after studying the soil's nature, we will decide about what type of foundation is necessary on it, whether it is a hard soil or a softer soil, and for a harder soil what are the foundations that we can put on it. That is, we can construct shallow foundation, we do not need to go too deep into it. Whether instead of hard soil it is a suppose it is a softer soil, then we need to construct a deep foundation for it, so that foundation can be taken deep and it can bear load. Okay. So, the engineer or the authority over there will decide which type of foundation is to be laid over there. Now, there are two main categories of foundation in construction. Now, the topmost categories are the deep foundation and shallow foundation. Let us cover them at a higher level. Now, one by one we will see those foundations. First of all, deep foundations. Now, what are deep foundations? As the name suggests, okay, deep. Now, the deep foundation will be taken deep into the soil up to a greater depth. Deep foundations are required when building on sand and other soft soils. Okay, if you are constructing sand or on a softer soil, the soil is very soft and its safe bearing capacity is very less, suppose, then you need to take the foundation deep into the soil. Okay. That will not be able to absorb the load of the building. Okay. If the soil is not able to absorb the load of the building, if it is too soft, then you need to construct deep foundations on that. Instead, a foundation must be established deep underground or even underwater, where contact with stronger layers of the earth can be established. Suppose you are constructing a bridge and a bridge is to be constructed over a river. Now, in river you will find softer soil beneath the water. So, there we can't construct shallow foundations, we need to go deep into the soil in order to distribute the load that is coming from the bridge, okay, into the harder layers of the soil. So, we need deep foundations over there. Suppose, for example, bridges, piers, dams for example must lay foundations underwater while still retaining structural integrity. This is where deep foundations become essential to the construction of large structure. Okay, as I told you, suppose you are constructing a bridge or a dam or any hydraulic structure into a river or on a river. Okay. Now, we will find softer sand over there or softer soils over there, which will not be having the bearing capacity as harder soil. So, what we need to do? We need to lay some coffer dam or caisson over there and take out that water first. Then we need to also take out the softer soil and we need to construct our foundation over there on a harder soil, and then we will again fill it with the soil. Okay, and then we can release the water or we can make those caissons or coffer dam as a permanent structure over there. So, basically what I am saying is that deep foundations are necessary on a softer soil, that is softer soil. Where is softer soil found? Where whenever we are constructing a hydraulic structure, okay, on a river suppose you are constructing a bridge or a dam. Okay. Now, let us see the second one, shallow foundations. Now, as the name suggests, shallow foundations are constructed on not a greater depth, it will be constructed on top as much as possible, it will not be taken to a greater depth. Typically, a shallow foundation is one that is wider than its deep. Okay. Here the depth will be very less and it will be much more wider instead. Okay. Shallow foundations can also be called as spread or open footings. Now, if it is not taken to a greater depth, that means it is constructed just below the top layer. So, we can also call it as open footings or a spread footings, that is spread on a ground. Okay. Of course, it is not kept entirely open, but it will not go that deeper. For obvious reasons, shallow foundations are the more economical of the two types. Now, obviously, if you are not taking a foundation deep, then it is going to be more economical than deep foundations. They do not require much in the way of digging, much of the excavation is not required as we are not taking it too deep, or boring into the earth, and for that reason they are most common. Now, they are most common as we do not need to go too deep into the ground. So, they can be constructed easily also. Shallow foundations are useful when the building is not exceedingly heavy, when the building is not heavy and when there are not too many loads on it or not heavy loads, then we can construct shallow foundations over there. And the soil can bear a significant amount of weight as a shallow depth, and the soil's bearing capacity is suppose very good, then we can construct shallow foundations over there, we do not need to go to deep. So, those are shallow foundations. Okay. First of all we saw deep foundations, then shallow foundations. In shallow foundations, once more I am telling you that the depth will not be more, the depth will be less than or equal to breadth, d less than or equal to b, and in deep foundations depth will be greater than the breadth, d will be greater than b. Now, as you can see over here is a figure of two foundations that I was talking about, shallow versus deep foundations. Okay. Straight away comparison, as you can see over here, the shallow foundation, as you can see in this project, are kept much above than the deep foundations. Okay. Deep foundations are taken below. Okay. Now, these shallow foundations will be economical, as you can see, because they are not taken to greater depth. Okay. And here we can see the depth is less than or equal to its breadth, but in deep foundations we can see the depth is greater than its breadth. Now, shallow foundations are commonly used for smaller projects. So, as I told you, wherever the load that is going to be imposed is less, that is in smaller projects, where the load that is going to be imposed will be less. So, those will be used there, and when the top layer of soil can be adequately handle the distribution of weight, and when the top layer is sufficient enough, it is hard enough, okay, to bear all the weight, then we can construct shallow foundation on it. On the other hand, you can see deep foundation over here, transfer the load down to a layer of substrata. Okay, here we can see softer soil. So, as you can see in this figure, the foundation is taken deep, okay, because we need to distribute the load on a harder surface. Okay. As you can see in this figure, the bottom portion, the lining one portion is the harder strata on which the foundation is laid or taken to that depth. Okay. Here you can see piles are arranged over here. In deep foundation, usually when constructing on a hydraulic structure, suppose you are constructing a hydraulic structure, then pile foundation is very common over there, pile foundation, and also you can construct sheet piling over there. Okay. So, those piles are taken to the harder depth, as you can see in this figure, harder depth is shown in the bottom, and on which we can see piles over there, and then the concrete is laid. Okay. As you can see in this deep foundation figure. Okay. Transfer the load down to a layer of substrata bedrock or to ensure structure integrity. Okay. Here the piles are taken to the bedrock to ensure the structural integrity, so that the structure will remain on its ground. Okay. That is, if you want to sustain a structure, we need to take the foundation to the harder soil. So, this is the difference between shallow and deep foundations. Shallow foundations are constructed just beneath the top surface of the earth, and deep foundation, as you can see, it is constructed and taken to the depth of the soil where we get a harder strata. So, thank you so much friends. I hope you would have enjoyed this lecture. Next time we will see the types more, we will dive into more of the types of shallow and deep foundations. Thank you very much. Have a great day.